Hi, everyone. We thank you for joining us. We're going to start the presentation in about 1 minute, but just wanted to let everyone know as you're filing in that if you're looking for improving incident investigations and root cause analysis, you're in the right place. So again, we'll be starting in about 1 minute, but just wanted to welcome everyone as we get things settled in. Again, we thank you all for joining us. As you file in, I wanted to let everyone know we're going to be starting the presentation in about 30 seconds. And that, of course, is improving incident investigations and root cause analysis. So again, thank you for joining us. Please get settled in, and we'll be starting in a little under 30 seconds. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Safety and Health webcast, Improving Incident Investigations and Root Cause Analysis, sponsored by Vector Solutions. My name is Kevin Drewley. I'm an associate editor with Safety and Health magazine, and I'll be moderating today's session. Thanks for joining us. We hope you all are safe and well amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In a few minutes, we'll start the presentation, but first I want to go over some preliminary items. The views of today's speakers and organizations are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Safety Council or Safety and Health magazine. Any mention of a commercial enterprise, product, or publication doesn't mean the council or magazine endorses those items. At the end of today's webcast, we'll conduct a question and answer session. To ask a question, simply click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, type your question, and click the Send button. Feel free to ask your question at any time during the presentation. You don't have to wait for the question and answer session to begin. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but because of the large number of participants today, we might not get to every question. Any unanswered questions will be forwarded along to today's speakers. At the end of this webcast, you'll be asked to complete a brief evaluation survey that will appear on a separate screen. We'll let you know more about that after the presentation. This webcast is archived, so you can access it after today's live event. To view this webcast and all of our past webcasts, go to safetyandhealthmagazine.com/events. You may also receive a link in a post-event email. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Our speakers today are Claire Epstein and Scott Stone. Claire serves Vector as Vice President of EHS and Risk Solutions, overseeing the operations of Vector EHS Management. She has extensive experience in regulatory analysis, safety management systems, information management systems, and safety reviews. Scott is a safety solutions specialist at Vector who brings more than 15 years of experience in EHS management and safety solutions. Claire and Scott, we thank you for being here today. Claire, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction. Well, welcome everyone. Today we are going to talk about improving incident investigations. We are going to go through an introduction to who we are in Vector Solutions. We're going to talk about why it's important to investigate, what types of incidents to investigate, the steps of an incident investigation, looking at some of the data points and trends that come out of an incident investigation, and talking a little bit about how environmental health and safety management can help you with your incident investigation. So we already had a great introduction to myself and Scott Stone, so I'm going to quickly skip this slide. Who is Vector Solutions? So Vector Solutions is a leading provider of software as a solution. We focus on enterprise e-learning, workforce management, safety management, and training content. We have multiple locations throughout the country. We have over 540 team members, and we have thousands of customers and users who use our technology every day to really make themselves safer, better, and smarter. In terms of all the feature set that we offer, is we do offer a series of modules that help you with your training and safety management. The piece that we would really focus on that we're talking a lot about today is incident investigation. And as we get deeper into it and we talk a lot about incident investigation and the analysis, that's only one piece in helping you prevent incidents So we do a lot on tracking and predicting incidents and managing risk and safety. And then we also have some more proactive tools to help you mitigate your incidents and mitigate your risk. And those deal with inspections, observations, job safety analysis, safety data sheets, and then learning management systems and e-learning courses. Again, what we're really focusing on today is incident investigation. But as part of our mission, we see that just as one small piece of what we do to help companies be, again, safer, smarter, better. So let's just start with the basics of why investigate. So when you have an incident, and I'll talk a little bit about what is an incident and what type of incident you should investigate, but it's really important to investigate incident and illnesses to really, the first key, I think, is to prevent them from happening again. So there's a lot to be learned every time you have a workplace incident. Even a small incident or a near miss can really help you look at what's going on and figure out what you can do to prevent the reoccurrence. So that's, I think, a really key piece. The other piece is regulatory compliance. So most organizations in the US do have to report work-related incidents and injuries to OSHA. And then in addition, there's a lot they have to do as part of workers' compensation claims. And to fill out the information that you need for OSHA and for workers' comp, there are some really key pieces of information you need to know. And that is an important reason to investigate. Obviously, if you also investigate incidents, you can save lives. So if you prevent one injury and illness from happening, you can save up to $40,000. So the cost of a work injury on average is about $40,000. It could be less, it could be more, but that is a pretty big chunk of money. And so not only do you prevent the incident and injury from happening again to save lives, but if you investigate, you can also mitigate the impact and effect of that incident. So incidents that are investigated and reported more quickly actually end up costing less money as well, because then there's more that you can do proactively to mitigate the results of that injury or illness. And obviously, it's going to demonstrate a commitment to health and safety and to promote a positive workplace morale. So those are all some very key reasons on why you want to investigate your incidents and illnesses that occur in the workplace. So there is a whole slew of incidents to investigate in terms of what we see out with our customers. Because of the OSHA requirements and the workers' compensation, most organizations really do investigate that employee injury or illness pretty well. It's a pretty tried and true path. Folks are familiar out there with OSHA record keeping. There's a whole slew of other types of incidents and illnesses, incidents to investigate that can really help you understand your risk, mitigate your risk, and again, save lives and prevent incidents from occurring. So again, if depending on the type of organization you have, if you have a lot of visitors, if you provide a service, you might want to investigate non-employee injuries or illnesses. So that can also be contractor injuries. Again, OSHA has a way of distinguishing whether those are reportable by you or your contractor, as well as the general public, depending on what you have. There's also environmental incidents. Anytime if you're dealing with hazardous chemicals and you have a spill release, that might be something you want to investigate or potentially are required to investigate. Vehicle incidents, if you have any type of vehicle fleet, you want to keep track of those incidents. That can also result in a lot of property damage claims. Security incidents, really that could be anything from crime, a threat, an assault. A lot of organizations, tips about potential security vulnerabilities. That's a lot of times people investigate those as well. Property damage, in addition, that sometimes that comes out of vehicle incidents, but sometimes you have property damage. And then another key one is near miss and close calls. So for best practices, what we see with a lot of our customers is that they will investigate near misses and close calls. And that's because it's the idea that before you have a serious incident or illness, you potentially have a lot of near misses that don't result in an incident or illness, but could have. And so by investigating those near misses and close calls, you can prevent the more serious incident and injury from happening if you investigate. And if folks are familiar with the incident pyramid, what you usually see is you see those near misses and close calls at the bottom of the incident pyramid. So before you go out and investigate an incident, you want to make sure you have an incident investigation program and plan in place. If you don't have that and you have an incident, then it's going to be really hard to know what to do if you don't have a program and plan. And so your program and plan should really include guidelines of what to do when you have an incident. You do need to, in most cases, if you fall under OSHA, you have to notify OSHA. And you do want a written plan for your incident investigation. So here is some basic information that should be in your program and in your standard operating procedures for investigating an incident. Who is actually going to conduct the investigations, who is authorized to notify outside agencies. So again, if you have a major incident, you could you would need to notify potentially your emergency response, which could be fire and police. You could also need to notify OSHA. If you're in the transportation field, you might need to notify other regulatory agencies like the NTSB or the Federal Transit or Department of Transportation. So there's a lot of notification procedures. It takes skill to conduct an incident investigation, so you need to know who is trained and what their roles are. And that's a nice part about Vector is that we also offer that e-training on incident investigation. Timetables, what the steps are, recommendations, and for corrective action. So there is a lot to be put in place with standard operating procedures. So if you do have an incident, you are ready to investigate it appropriately. And again, this is all goes to helping reduce incidents and also to save you time and money when an incident occurs. Again, the more standard your procedures are, the more trained people are, the more you can learn from an incident and de-escalate the incident and the costs. So when you have an incident investigation, what are some steps that you should take? The very first thing is all that pre-planning that I mentioned, having those procedures and plans, having people trained, and having an incident investigation kit or multiple kits available. So that's sort of really before you actually have an incident. And then the very, very first thing you want to make sure is that if you do have anyone that's injured or hurt, whether it's employees or contracts or the public, you want to make sure that they get the attention they need first. But once you do that, here are some common steps that you should do in an investigation. You want to make sure you preserve and document the scene. You want to collect information, create a report, determine root causes, share findings, and implement corrective actions. And I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail. So the first thing you want to do, again, after you have established that everyone is safe, is you want to make sure you barricade the area to allow you to do your incident investigation, and again, to keep it safe. And you want to examine the scene. You want to take photos and videos. It's so easy now to take photos and videos of incidents as they occur and to take multiple. And you want to notify the positions of any machines or controls or vehicles, again, depending what type of incident it was. And you want to document the findings using incident forms. And you can do this multiple ways. You can use pen and paper. You can use a system such as Vector EHS, a software system. You can use a mobile app. We're in favor of in documenting your findings with photographs, with videos, and doing that in much as real time as possible because events change quickly and things are fresh and you have more information if you do it immediately. Here are some information that you should gather when you preserve the scene. So if you are using, if they're machines and equipment and tools and supplies or vehicles, here's all of the information that you can collect about the materials and conditions. Now with technology, there's probably so many logs, charts, and records. You know, a lot of machines may have their own charts and records. Vehicles may have tracking devices as well. And so those are all good pieces. There might be additional cameras to look at in other systems. So those are all information to preserve and record during the scene. Some other information about the incident that you want to include is any environmental conditions, you know, the temperature, the light, the noise, the weather, if it is an environmental incident, you really need to keep track of what type of chemicals, the response, the PPE, and the level of spill. You do, again, depending on the type of incident, you do want to interview employees and any other witnesses. So those that were involved, those who were witnesses, any supervisors, any other workers. Again, recommend interviewing the witnesses as soon as possible. There's a lot of organizations will have witness cards that they pass out and have witnesses actually write their statements and sign it. And again, you want to do it, best practice is to interview witnesses individually. And it is good as part of your incident investigation training to have a section on how to interview employees and witnesses and everything else. So you do want to collect as much information as you can, again, depending on the severity of the incident. And this is just an example of all of the different pieces. There might be company policies and procedures. There might be maintenance. A lot of times there's a link between incident occurrences, investigation, and training that employees may have received. So it's good to look at training records. What type of training is that training up to date? And then any previous incidents that may have been similar, both within your location or if you're in a multiple location organization, to look at if you've had similar incidents in other locations, as well as what's going on in the industry or what's going on in OSHA. So lots of different areas to look at as you do your incident investigation. Here are some basic information that you want to collect when you do your incident investigation. Now, some of this information is required both for OSHA and for workers' comp. So as we see out in the field for workers' comp or employee injuries, we do see most of our customers are collecting a common data set of information about the employee, as well as some common data sets about the incident. We do see a lot of our customers do root cause analysis, which is really trying to understand the underlying systematic causes of an incident. And again, this goes back to one of the main reasons you're doing your incident investigation is to prevent that incident and illness from reoccurring. So people will look at what happened, how did it happen, why did it happen, and what needs to be corrected. Now, we do see our customers do a wide variety of root cause analysis. Some people look at primary causes, some people look at contributing causes. Organizations look, sometimes they use the 5 why philosophy, which it really digs deep into the why did it happen. But again, it's just whatever root cause methodology you use, it's just important to do that for your injury and illness prevention. And here's an example of a root cause where an employee slipped and fell and hurt his back. The immediate cause was the floor was wet. Primary cause was the janitor did not properly dry the area. A secondary cause is janitor did not leave a wet floor sign. And then the root cause might be not proper training. So again, this is an example of a root cause analysis you might do for an incident. And again, depending on the type of incident, you may have multiple factors that come into play. And that's another part of the training that folks do when they're training a team on incident investigation. they often may have specific training that they give to supervisors or safety professionals on root cause. And here are some tools that you can use for root cause. You can use some brainstorming checklists, logic, event and trees, timelines, CFOOT diagrams, and causal factor determination. Another important part of the incident investigation is the corrective action. So it's not only enough to know why an incident happened. If you want that incident to prevent it from reoccurring, there are probably issues and recommendations that come out of that incident investigation. And so that's where the corrective action planning comes in place. So those are definitely recommendations. And you can have recommendations for a specific incident. You can have it to similar situations. And the idea is that you are developing a corrective action plan. You're assigning responsibility for that corrective action plan, and you're monitoring that corrective action plan to make sure that the appropriate controls and actions are taken to prevent the reoccurring of this incident. Oftentimes what we'll see out in the field, if there is a major incident, we can see multiple corrective actions for that incident. So usually it's not just one or two, it could be up to 4 or 5, depending on the type of incident or even more. And that's generally we'll see with those corrective actions that, you know, 1 or 2 might be really, really easy to fix. Hey, I'm going to give this employee some refresher training. Some of the others may be maybe much longer term in nature and may require a lot of monitoring and effort. So they can really run the gamut between simple fixes to more complex fixes. Okay, we're going to take a very, very quick poll right now. And then we're going to turn it over to my colleague Scott to talk about some of the data pieces. And we'll just give folks a few minutes sorry, not a few minutes, about another minute to respond. And then we'll share the results.
All right, we good to go, Claire?
Yeah, good from my end. Are you going to show the poll results? Oh, here they are. Okay, so the question is, what do you struggle most with? And the answer far and away, the winner is tracking and completing follow-up on corrective actions. And that makes sense. It is a struggle to do that. Some of the other issues also are collecting too much or too little information and making meaningful connections are all issues, which is actually a really good segue to Scott Stone, because he's really going to talk a bit about making those meaningful connections from the data you can collect in an incident investigation. So Scott, ready for you when you are.
Great, thanks, Claire. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Perfect. All right. So before jumping into some specific examples, I'm just going to spend a little time on some steps for success or how to get started with some of this stuff. And it's about, measuring, certain components of your investigation program to really track on, what's working, what's not working. The prime example of, corrective actions, that's a very common thing out there of, assigning all these corrective actions and they're not getting done. So different things like that. But first off, you need to identify, those investigation indicators that are objective and easy to measure. And so they provide good and reliable indication of the level of performance. So you know what you need to address when the performance level starts to dip. And when you're working on these, developing of these indicators, you don't do it in a bubble. Get a well-rounded team so you can provide feedback, get buy-in for all, and that's really going to set you up for success, in the future. It's not just the safety manager's job sitting in an office behind a closed door working on these programs and developing all these things. It really is a team effort. But these indicators must be selected based on what works best for your organization. And to get started, determine your top priorities, pick a starting point, and build from there. But to be able to do all this, you kind of need to know where you're at right now. So that where the historical analysis comes into play to determine your accurate, baseline. Some of you might have all of the data right now, that everything that Claire showed, and, hey, we pretty much got all the major elements in place. Maybe it's just not in a format that can be utilized. You need to get it into a standardized system so you can use that data for analytics to help you drive, improvement. Maybe you have all the injury data, what's a recordable, but maybe you're not tracking your first aids, your near misses, your property damage, things like that. Also a good time to conduct a gap analysis of your investigation program. So everything, again, that Claire talked about, how do you match up to that? So do that gap analysis, go through and chart it out. And here's where we're at. Here's how we compare to a best practice. That includes the program elements that you have. This also includes how it's applied in the field, because it's one thing to have a great, fancy, shiny investigation program that's stored on a shared drive in a binder somewhere, but it's a whole nother, deal on how is it really being applied out in the field. So that has to be included in the analysis. How are the investigations, currently really being done? Are we doing them? Are we not doing them? Are we missing elements when we're out there conducting that investigation? And the third component of that gap analysis is gauge a level of understanding of those that are responsible to conduct the investigations. When I was in safety management, sometimes you'd find out that we had a supervisor conducting an investigation. They had no clue what they were doing because they weren't provided, the training and the information and the tools to be able to do it appropriately. So it's really looking at the program, how it's applied out in the field, and what level of understanding do you have? And that's what that gap analysis should show. That's really going to give you a launching point to get your program rolling. Then you need to determine the system that you'll be collecting, the data, analyzing and communicating the data. This is, where software, comes into play for sure. I'll touch on this on a future slide, but, investigation data that sits in a filing cabinet, or stuck in an Excel file or multiple files or Word docs, or whatever, that's not doing anybody any good. It makes it very, very difficult, to utilize that data. Then goal setting, what goals do you want? They need to be realistic goals. Setting goals too low will give your company a false sense of security, which can lead to complacency. Goals, of course, with, we'll talk about some lagging indicators and incident rates and things like that, but from an investigation standpoint too, there's certain things that you need to track. Maybe it's time, lag of, time to report an initial incident, time to conduct the investigation, quality of investigation reports. So different goals can be set for that. And then, of course, your incident rates, and, you want to make it realistic. So if you have a goal of a 5 for a recordable rate, and the industry average is, say, a 1, but hey, 5 is good. We hit that every year. We're fine with that. Probably not where you want to be. That might be if you're at a 5 and the industry average is 1, hey, maybe that's your first goal. Maybe split that in half and go from there. Next one, they have to be understood by and owned by everyone. Communication is critical. So when I get into the indicators and some metrics and analysis, everyone needs to be aware of those and what the goals are and what the performance is on that. So everyone has to be part of that. And when those indicators start to drop, hey, our investigation process is failing, we're not getting our initial reports in, we're not assigning corrective actions or getting them done, that should trigger action. And then the last one on there is periodically assess and recognize performance. So always continually looking at your program, for improvements, get feedback from folks, beware of the flavor of the month, or constant change. Get a system that you like. Of course, it's going to evolve and change over time, but make sure it's implemented right. People understand it, and always look to improve. Next slide. So just real quick on performance indicators, two main categories of indicators, lagging and leading. Lagging indicators, these are measurements by your recordable rates, your lost time rates, DART rates, maybe it's citations, maybe it's your workers' comp, EMR, experience modification rate. These are based on events that have already occurred. And the investigation process, hey, an event has already occurred. But these are very important and need your full attention to, and Claire talked about it, to prevent reoccurrence. So this is from initial report, investigation, root cause, corrective action management, lessons learned communication, all of those things in there. And then leading indicators, these are proactive and predictive measures that monitor and provide information, relevant information specific to, safety activities or processes of an EHS management system. And when performance slips, it triggers action. So it's before an incident occurred. Examples include an inspection program. An inspection program could come out of an investigation. We have a high level of slips, trips, and falls. One of the corrective actions is we're going to implement an inspection program daily throughout the workplace to identify these slips, trips, and falls before it becomes an issue. And then, of course, identifying those issues, and then the whole corrective action management piece of that. Another one, like behavior-based safety, one of my favorites, leadership out on the floor, interacting with the employees, while they're engaged in a task, and giving them constructive feedback, to help them improve or identify risk, or maybe there was something, that they missed, but engaging with those employees out there. And, are they doing them, not doing them? And, more importantly, what's the quality of those conversations? So those are just a couple examples of leading indicators. Next slide. Now, lagging indicators, and I know this slide is titled lagging indicators, and the common ones, and they're in a later slide, is all your incident rates and things like that. But these next ones that I'm going to talk about, they are related, they are associated with an incident that occurred, but they can also I think become leading indicators, because they're not only associated with that incident that occurred, but they can prevent future incidents. So these indicators, like process indicators, if you are tracking your investigations, the quality of them, the timely reporting, are they identifying the right root cause, and all those things. If you have, and your performance is not there, you can have a recurrence, of an incident or something else. So they're all very, very important and need absolute full attention. But process indicators, reporting and investigation, is the process being followed from start to finish? From the initial report going in, you should track that. The time that came in, and your goal is it's immediate. Within 30 minutes or an hour, that initial report has to be done. To the full investigation, again, is it done? Is it done, completely and accurately? You should have measurements around that. Root cause analysis. Do you have a root cause analysis? Is it the right root cause analysis? It's very easy to blame the employee. You have to have those reviews and quality touch points in there that just don't take the root cause that the supervisor threw in out there, because a lot of times it's the employee did something wrong, and you dig down, and Claire had the example, maybe they weren't trained, or there wasn't a program or a process in place, or that's the way it's always been done. So making sure that you have that right root cause. And then the corrective actions one, are they assigned, and have they been closed? I'll talk about that here in just a minute, but focus on all incidents. One of the biggest failures is not focusing the same amount of attention on all incidents. It's the, thank goodness I dodged a bullet on that one. It's not a recordable incident. So half the investigation, it just stops. It doesn't get done because, it's not going to show up on the metrics. No one's going to get mad. It's not a recordable. No, they all need the same amount of attention. So whether it's a first aid, it's a near miss, whatever that is, it has to go through that same process, because the ultimate goal is, to prevent that occurrence from happening again. And, with those, it is, you should have metrics around that. If you have 10 recordables and you got 10 recordables and 1 first aid and 0 near misses, there's probably something wrong with your reporting system. So you should have all those things on there, like the chart up there on the top right. You had a lot of, first aids, and you had some near hit or near misses and injuries. So maybe the near hit should be, more than the first aid. But those are things that you want to track and look at, because it's an indicator that something's not right with your program. And then corrective actions, just, taking an Excel action plan, tracking the tracking down people to get the statuses done. I've been there, I've done that, and then lo and behold, your action plan becomes a month old. You forgot to look at it, and those corrective actions never got done. Not doing, you did a great job investigating and all that, but that's the critical piece. Those corrective actions, are they being done? If not, you fail to follow through, that problem still exists, and it opens you up for reoccurrence. Next slide. So the reporting, and these are some incident indicators that we have up here, but the process has to capture the required data, clear laid it all out there. It has to be good data too. So it's garbage in, garbage out. You can have the best fancy expensive software system, to go out and do all this analysis for you. But if you haven't done your work up front, train people and identify the right things that you want to track, it's garbage in, garbage out. It's not going to do you any good. So you really have to work on that, keep it clean, because it's all about identifying those trends and improvement areas, with that. So some of the incident indicators, by root cause, very important. What root cause methodology Claire talked about, is it 5 whys, fishbone, whatever that you're utilizing, but it has to be implemented. You need to track that. What is your Pareto chart up there on the top right of your root causes? You need to be able to see that as these incidents are coming, and take, start somewhere, start at the top of the Pareto. And, we have an issue with, I hardly read it, inadequate tools or equipment. That's an issue. Let's go focus on that, right now. So you got to have metrics around that. Maybe vehicle related, the average time lag in reporting, was up there. This can cause havoc in case management, and definitely drive your rates up. You lose control of the investigation process. You lose control of the care of the employee. You lose control of, the scene, is gone. You can't control the scene anymore. Your witnesses, they're forgetting stuff. So it really makes it difficult. So that's one of them. The other one's the day of week, time of day, shift, by location, is one of them. So there's a lot, lots of different ones out there. The ones that aren't up there: nature of injury, maybe area body, type of incident that we just showed on the last chart, to see if you're, focused on all the right things. Maybe it's time with the company. You had a spike with new hires. Hey, we're looking at, my God, 90% of our incidents are with people that are less than 6 months on the job. You should have that indicator in front of you. Say, man, we have an issue with onboarding, training, orientation, all of those things. Next slide. Now, some of the more, common, indicators, the incident rates, and won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but, true lagging indicators here. Some of the rates: your total recordable incident rate, your TRIR or TCIR, total case incident rate, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you call it recordable rate. A lot of different ways to name it, but these rates, and I'll get into the rates. These are the number of whatever rate you're looking at, the number of, say, recordable incidents per 100 full-time workers. Maybe it's a lost time incident rate. So these are incidents that resulted in a day away from work, not the day that the incident happened, but the next day. Or a DART rate, which is it resulted in a day away from work, or a restricted day, or transferred to another job day. And there's other indicators that fall into here that you need to be looking at. Your EMR, experience modification rate. Anything over 1 is greater than industry average. These can have a huge impact on. I came from contract business where we wouldn't get work if your rates were over a certain level, over industry average, or your EMR was over a 1. That can actually prevent you from getting work. Also, rates that a lot of people don't think of: you can do first aid rates, you can do near miss rates, and then there are many others like severity rates and things like that. But once you have your baseline that we talked about earlier, set your goals, make them realistic, and move on from there. But a big component of that is having that investigation program in place and tracking all of those indicators. Next slide. So just really quick on how these rates are calculated and all that great stuff. This first one up here is your recordable rate, total case incident rate, or total or TRIR. And the way these rates work, the outcome is it's going to give you a rate of how many recordable incidents you had per 100 full-time employees. So it starts with your number of incidents, so your OSHA recordables in this example, times 200,000, which is 100 employees working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks per year. And this is this rate gives you, it's kind of an annualized number, and I'll go through an example calculation here, but number of recordables times 200,000 divided by hours worked. So say it's February 1st and it's January, and you're doing an annual rate. So you had one recordable in the month of January times 200,000 hours divided by how many hours you worked in that month of January. So say it's 100,000 hours. So one recordable times 200,000 divided by 100,000 gives you a recordable rate of 2, meaning you injured 2 employees out of every 100 employees. So that's how the rate works, or all the rates work for that matter. Next slide. And just one more example, your DART rate, it's the exact same thing, but instead of just your number of total recordables there on top, you're going to put how many DART cases you had. So those that resulted in a day away, restricted, or transfer work. And then you can plug whatever other rates you want in there. You want a first aid rate, you can plug that in the numerator. You want a near miss rate, you can put that in there. Another big one, of course, your lost time rate. That's kind of a big one out there, ones that just resulted in a day away from work. You put that in the number of incidents, and then that gives you that rates. And then you can utilize these, next slide, to compare to industry averages. So right there on the Bureau of Labor statistics, you can go online. I definitely used to check this out. There is always a delay, the year before. It takes them a while to compile all that data and all that stuff, but you can go on there and look up your NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System code. You go down there, you find that, and then you can get the industry average for your recordable rates. You get your cases with days away, lost time rates, days away, job transfer or restriction. That's your DART rate, and then other recordable cases. So you can go right on there and see, how am I performing against like companies of mine based on that NAICS code. It's a great place to really, I think, start, when you're looking at goals and things like that from a lagging indicator incident rate perspective. Next slide. All right, so how can EHS Management Software help? Or benefits of thank you. I came from Excel spreadsheets, pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, trying to manage, investigation documents from Word, corrective action management on Excel. It makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to do, anything, with the data, and it's a lot of time. To get in there and manage all of this data. The other thing you can't control, like versions and all that. Software, EHS software like Vector, you can set up, hey, this is our investigation program. Here's everyone's utilizing the same system. When you make a change, it's applied all over. You don't have someone still using an investigation report that was from 5 years ago and it's been revised 5 times. Because that absolutely happens. I'm like, where did this come from? We haven't used that in 5 years. They're all utilizing the same system, on the same page. So makes it very easy from that standpoint. But easy data entry for consistent and streamlined recording of incident data. Mobile, definitely a big key. Having a fully mobile capable option like Vector EHS. Operating off the same playbook, that same version is very good, and the same information, calling things the same, the categories of root cause, having your hierarchy built in there with departments, and all that information that Claire talked about, and they're having required fields that this has to be filled out, on a paper copy, kind of hard to control some of that stuff. Email it back to them and say, hey, this isn't good. Having that approval process built into the system. The configurability of a system is absolutely critical. You don't want a rigid system. You want to be able to call something the way you call it. If you don't call a near miss, you want to call it a near hit. Hey, we're going to change that. The forms itself, you don't want to be locked into something that you can't change, without, a lot of money spent and all that. So, a software solution that allows you to configure it the way you want it. This is what we call things. You generate new text information, drop downs, add incident types, of any type of form, to be, flexible enough to do that. Very, very important from a software solution. Link and track completion of corrective actions, absolutely, from the life cycle of a corrective action, from assigning a corrective action to someone that, hey, this is the due date, email notifications, hey, this is due. When it's overdue, these folks are going to get notified. Like when it's a day overdue, when it's 10 days overdue, it's going to get escalated even more. So a full tracking system, to be able to manage those corrective actions. And a lot of this is based on hierarchy, in the organization. If you're top level safety, you can see everything going on in the company. But if you're at a specific location, you just might be able to see those that apply to that. Sign off, and completed initial reports and investigations. So having the system be able to, allow different users to do different things. You might allow everyone to submit an initial incident report, and maybe a second level to conduct the investigation, a third level to get into the record keeping part of it, and then a fourth level to actually do that final review and closure of the system. All your reports, and Claire talked about some of them, but software like Vector, automatically in real time, you can do all your regulatory reports from your OSHA 300, 300A, 301, all of those types of things in there, and then quick comparison of data over time, whatever time frame that you want. Next slide. General features and functionality. Email notification and alerts, everyone on the same page, from the initial incident, from a mobile device, everyone's getting that report, that kind of kicks off the investigation on, hey, this just happened. There's no phone tag, text tag, story changing, things like that incident's being done, which can also be different people get notified for different types of incidents. Maybe it's a property damage, and these folks get the email. Maybe it's a near miss, and maybe you have a near miss team, a safety committee that manages a lot of near misses. Maybe they get notified. So that can all be set up with different alerts of, an investigation complete, corrective actions overdue, all those things to really keep everything front and center, not buried in filing cabinet somewhere or in an Excel document. Document and photo management. Programs, SOPs, by department with revision dates, always the latest and greatest that allows employees, access to those critical documents that they need, really within one system. And then the next three down there, reporting and dashboarding and things like that. From a dashboarding standpoint, customized metrics to your specific KPIs, your investigation KPIs, lag time, corrective action completed, investigation completed, your root cause analysis, all those things that we talked about that you want, you can set up on your dashboard. That's real time, front and center. Here's how we're performing to those key performance indicators, or those indicators that we want to manage. So everything from, like I said, investigation status and incident rates and all that. And a reporting standpoint, having a system to be able to generate custom reports. So when I say custom reports, coming from safety, I probably spent, a day, or more, my team, probably 2 days out of the month, gathering all of the data from all the different things, just not investigations, but, trying to gather this and configure it and fit it in Excel and all these charts, and all these people want different things. But having a software solution that you can generate any type of report that you want, long as it's an input into the system. So anything from an investigation report. So all the different criteria that Claire laid out, you can generate custom reports that you might want, this specific report, maybe it's corrective actions that are overdue. Every Monday, I want these folks on management team to get an email. And every Monday morning they open up, these are the ones that are overdue. Or maybe it's last week incidents, or maybe it's, root cause analysis, information, whatever that you want, fully customized, and it does it for you. So as long as you have those inputs correct into the system, On the backside from reporting, you can measure all of those indicators to gauge your level of performance in whatever category that you want, and then keep that, front on the dashboard, which is configured to whoever that user login is. These are the metrics that I want to see. We've agreed upon. These are the goals. And then all those reports that you spend so much time on to help you with the analytics and data that can be generated and sent out at whatever frequency that you want and share it out. So next slide.
I think that's it. We are good for questions.
Well, excellent. Great job, Claire and Scott. Thanks for your insights and expertise. Before we do start the Q&A, just want to remind everyone of the evaluation survey we're asking you to complete. The survey will open in a different screen after this presentation. Your input is important because it'll help us improve future webcasts. We do appreciate you taking the extra time to offer feedback. I know we've seen some questions trickling in, but if not, if you need a reminder, if you want to ask a question, simply click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, type your question, and click the send button. One popular query we've received already relates to whether slides and a recording of the presentation will be available. The answer is yes. You should expect those tomorrow in a post-event email, even if you're over the international date line, as is the case with one attendee who indicated he's from Singapore and watching this in the wee hours of tomorrow morning for a lot of us here in North America. But with that, now we will get to those questions. First one, what advice would you give to a company that's looking to improve the way they're currently tracking and looking at their incident metrics?
That's a great question. I'll start with that and then certainly let Scott chime in. I mean, the first thing, you really just want to evaluate where you are. So what are you currently doing? And what are the issues with what you're currently doing, and then go from there. So I think a lot of times what we see is that folks are doing an okay job of collecting the data points. Where they're usually falling down is on the analytics. And I would say part of that is because it does take some work to figure out how to analyze the data. So I would say whether it's a tool like Vector EHS or another software tool, that being able to do reports easily and on the fly can really help with that, because then you can really try out different data sets and see what works for you.
Any thoughts on your end, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the most common, of course, metrics we talked about, the incident rates, that's an easy one. Everyone's tracking that. They're pretty standard, as long as you're classifying things correctly and all that. But it's doing a deeper dive, and like some of the things that we talked about, focusing on the right metrics that are going to improve performance. So that's beyond those incident rates. Yes, you have to have them and track them, but hey, it happened and all that. So specifically talking about like the investigation process, it's focusing on, is your investigation process working, from the initial report to identifying root cause. So putting metrics around those critical things that you want to track. The corrective actions, are they being assigned and are they being completed? Those are key metrics that are, associated with your incident management program. So you really have to have the right metrics and dig a little deeper. If you're talking all safety, it's getting further into the leading indicator metrics and, looking at your behavior-based observations, your training, your inspections, and really doing a huge focus on leading indicators. And yes, those incident rates are going to be there, but all those other metrics that we're talking about should help drive those incident rates down. So it's really, focusing on, thinking outside the box and getting out of what you're doing right now, which is, hey, we're just doing, recordable rates and things like that. It's all that other stuff that's really going to make an impact.
Next question asks, where can I go to get more information on the features of incident investigation software?
Well, great. I'll take that one as well. There's a ton of information on the Vector Solutions website, and that's on Vector EHS, and lots of information on incident investigation, as well as if you go to the blog for Vector Solutions, we have a couple of great blog articles on incident investigation, as well as a very detailed guide of incident investigation procedures and policies that I'd recommend downloading.
Kind of staying with that technology front, any apps you suggest for investigators to use to guide an investigation, maybe for remote work sites or multiple work sites?
I mean, obviously we're biased, but Vector EHS has a great mobile app that you can download to your mobile device from either the Google Play or Apple Store, and is also available for offline use.
Next question, is the TCIR rate calculated only from OSHA recordables or from all injuries?
That is just for OSHA recordables. So it's your total case incident rate. So it's those that classify, anything above a first aid, medical treatment, days away, restricted work. So, general OSHA record keeping guidelines, but those are ones that are classified as an OSHA recordable. And then outside of that, like your lost time rate is still an OSHA recordable, but those are recordables that result in like a day away from work. So, or did result in a day away from work. So, but yes, the TCIR is just what is classified as an OSHA recordable.
Getting a few other questions related to some things you're mentioning. Just first, is the Vector Solution system multilingual?
Yes.
With general features, can you generate your own reports?
Yes, absolutely. And I sort of alluded to this previously with Vector EHS. We have all the standard reports that folks need, all your OSHA recordables, OSHA rate reports, as well as other indicators that we know our customers have liked and used over the years. But in addition, we have a reporting tool that really lets you create your reports, your own reports. So with any of the data elements that you're collecting for incident investigation, you can go in and create your own trends and graphs and save them and share them and schedule them out. So there's lots of flexibility. We find that a lot of our customers will use our standard reporting, but in addition, create their own reports as well for things that are unique for them.
Does your software work with or communicate with HR suites such as Workday, or maybe maintenance ones such as CityWorks, GIS mapping, etc.?
Yes, there's a big connection. The most popular ones are the ones mentioned. We definitely work a lot with HR systems because if you are investigating incidents, you generally want to have information about your employees in the system. And some of that's required for OSHA record keeping, their title, their gender, information like that is required. But again, the more information you have on your employees can help you do more richer incident investigation analysis and reporting.
Is the system set up for corrective action being assigned to multiple people in an investigation?
Yes, you can set up multiple corrective actions. And you can also assign a corrective action to multiple levels of responsible party.
How would one get a demo on the system?
So that's a great question. If you go to our Vector Solutions website and you go there, there will be a demo button, and just click that demo sign up page and fill that out. And that will get you into our system, and you will have a sales representative reach out to give you a demo.
Well, as we're winding down, I know you both have been quite thorough. What kind of final thoughts might you have for folks this afternoon?
I would say thank you. Well, first, I just want to thank everyone for attending. And then the other thing I would say is definitely pre-plan. Be prepared for your incidents before they happen, and definitely take a deep dive at your data. Scott, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, no, I mean, also thank you. I would say, first step, depending on where you're at, I talked about that gap analysis. It's a great time to dust everything off, utilize what you've learned today to see where you stand, compared to where, you need to be or where you want to be, and then put your plan together. Don't let it fall off the radar. I know it happens a lot. We're all busy. I know you're probably on here for a reason, but find out where you're at right now and put your improvement plan, in place and go from there.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we are running out of time today. Sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions, but all of today's unanswered questions will be forwarded on to our speakers. And once again, we hope you take the time to fill out the evaluation survey and provide your feedback. With that, we end today's Safety and Health Magazine webcast. I'd like to thank Claire Epstein, Scott Stone, everyone at Vector Solutions, and all of you who listened in. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you.